What was the tenure process like?
You put together like the package of all your writings, a 3 different statements. So one, a research statement about what you're going to do in the future and how all the things that you did tie into what you're going to do in the future. And then a teaching statement saying how you plan to teach and what you're going to do in the future and how that all ties in with everything together. And then also a service statement, which is how you're going to serve the university and the world, in the future, and law school and all that stuff. And then, so there's those 3 statements. There's your materials that you've all put together. And then you, and this is one thing where schools all do it differently. You have to get like, I think 3 different, at Wisconsin, you have to get 3 external review letters. And that's not up to me to find. That's up to the tenure review committee to go through and anonymously search for people who are experienced in your area of law, who can write some kind of review letter looking at all the packages. And different schools do it differently, but that's how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that gets sent, that gets sent to be approved by all the, so it goes through a few different steps. So that whole package gets put together. The school, all the tenured people at the school vote on whether or not to send you forward to what's called the divisional committee. In many schools, the law school is really the real final say. At Wisconsin, our divisional committee has a lot of power, so it's really more the divisional committee which has more say, and they're the committee of all the people who review social science people going up for tenure. So then they do a second review of everyone's tenure packages that are going through that, see whether you're up to snuff.
Yeah, I see. Well, that's great that you got through it. It seems like that was pretty smooth. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm always worried about things. So, yeah.
Yeah. And have you done any other visiting professorships?
Not really. I mean, I just was on sabbatical in the spring, and even though people aren't supposed to teach on sabbatical, I did anyway at UC Davis just to see what it's like. But it wasn't technically. I was listed as a visiting professor, but it's not really a visiting professorship as much as me saying, hey, can I teach a class while I'm here?
Oh, just for fun, huh?
Yeah.
So what did you teach at UC Davis?
Food law, because I just wanted to, because my sabbatical was to sort of make myself think about this book project. It helped to be teaching the class because it forced me to focus.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I almost went to UC Davis for law school, so
cool.
So that's a cool school. And plus, they do focus a lot on food production or have some special cultural development.
That's why I wanted to be there. But they've got also like so many like sort of critical race theorists there, which is kind of neat too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, how about now at your school? Like, do you take part in advising any student groups or any other activities besides simply teaching?
Yeah. So I advise both our group Q Law, the LGBTQ law students, APALSA, and our Environmental Law Society. And also every now and then we have a food law society that gets active, but they haven't been active recently. But whenever they're active, I try to advise them too.
Mm-hmm. I see. And well, speaking of food law though, like, have you seen these articles about how, okay, so you're probably more on top of this than I am, but I thought I read articles about how the FDA isn't going in to inspect a lot of these like food factories as often now.
Yep.
Budget cuts or COVID or something.
Yeah, they're not doing as much inspection now. The complicated thing about this is that the FDA has never been doing that many inspections. So here's the weird thing about food is like food gets funneled into 2 different agencies for inspection. There's either USDA for meat, shelled eggs, which means eggs without the shell. I think certain kinds of vegetables, certain things. So USDA has continuous inspections. So they're always there and they're not changing. So things like, you don't have to worry about meat, or I think many types of dairy, except certain types of dairy, which goes under the FDA. So many things are still not changing. The FDA, however, does a lot of processed food and stuff like that. They've always been working through spot inspections. So they've always had a sort of risk targeted inspection kind of process because there's so many more processed food facilities than there are, say, livestock packing kind of facilities or meat processing facilities. And so they've never had the resources to do continuous inspections. They don't even have the legal mandate to do so. So they've always been spotty on inspections, but now they're probably even spottier. Whether or not that really changes the food safety, landscape is kind of uncertain. because, you know, they're still doing sort of risk targeted things, but they're doing less of them. But, you know, I don't know whether or not that's really going to change the on the ground kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about you personally? Are there certain things that you refuse to eat?
Oh, I eat everything. I got
It's not like you're a vegetarian or you refuse to eat stuff from here or whatever.
Yeah, no, I often joke that like I'm the worst food safety professor ever because I'll just eat anything.
Oh, okay. Well, what are some of the stranger things that you have eaten?
I ate chicken testicles when I was in Taiwan.
What?
Yeah, and they're actually much larger than you'd think.
Where did you eat it and what did it look like or taste like?
It was a fancy restaurant, and it tasted kind of creamy. And, you know, and they're bigger than you think. They're like this big.
Oh,
Chickens are not this big, but they're that big.
so was it fried or something or? Huh?
It was in a soup.
In a soup. Okay. Huh. That sounds interesting.
I was like,
something that you would want to eat again?
what? Probably not. But I'm trying to eat down all the different testicles so I can make a Facebook album called Balls I've Eaten.
God. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
But I've also had other things like ant larvae in Mexico and like sea slugs. You probably had the sea cucumber, right? In Chinese.
No, I don't like eating any of those traditional dishes.
Okay, I'll eat them all.
Like chow mein noodles or something.
Okay.
Yeah, the fake stuff. So yeah, interesting. Have you been to Hong Kong before?
Yeah, I've been there a few times. I think the last time was 2 years ago or something. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So did you enjoy eating all the different foods there?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Hong Kong is great eating. So did Taiwan, actually.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I definitely miss all the different foods in Taiwan and the street food and all that. As long as you don't get sick. Yeah. Well, I mean, do your parents have they gone back lately? Well, probably not very recently, but did your parents frequently go back to Hong Kong?
They used to relatively, like maybe every 4 or 5 years go back, but they haven't recently because I think they've decided they're gonna low key it on the travel because they're getting old and they're in retirement home. I mean, they're actually still up and about, but I think they're just decided that their traveling days are relatively over.
Yeah, it's stressful anyway, even without the coronavirus and everything.
Yeah, and they were saying like even before they would get sick while traveling because someone would be sick on the plane. So, you know, they're like,
Yeah, I see. Well, so at your current school, like, do you feel like you fit in or have you ever felt discriminated against in the academy?
It's a complicated question. I mean, I don't think I've been overtly discriminated against. And if there is any discrimination, it's for complicated reasons, which is that I think the law school prides itself on being very family friendly, which means they generally give a lot of support to people with children and stuff, and which is great. I think that's really good. But it also means that I think they haven't treated someone like, because I don't have children and I made it known that I don't really want children. And I think sometimes my sort of time commitment concerns don't get taken as seriously because of that. Again, complicated. I don't know how to judge that in an overall kind of thing. But, you know, in terms of race and stuff like that, I think the only thing that is potentially, you know, discriminatory is more like, you know, when you have few people who are minorities, there's more pressure to serve on different committees, right? Because you want to have a diverse committee and stuff like that, right? You want to have diverse groups making decisions, but that means more time is going to get taken away from stuff like research, stuff like other things that you get more evaluated on. So I think that's kind of how it comes into play, less versus any kind of overt kind of discrimination. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Like you feel like you have to be out there and be involved and do this and do that. You know, like I'm sure you felt obligated to be like student advisor to all these different groups and stuff.
Yeah. Whereas I think if I didn't have all these sort of demographic related things, like I could just, you know, chill out and focus on my work. Yeah.
Well, do you find yourself going to a lot of conferences all over the place? I mean, there's some sort of like Asian American law professors group too, right?
Yeah, there is. And I'm on their mailing list, but I've never been to the conference because like,
Mhm.
They don't have that many. There's like a few environmental folks in there, but they don't even go to the conference. So I just hang out with them in environmental conferences.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah, there's just always something going on, right?
Yeah.
I see. Wow. So, what other kinds of hobbies do you enjoy? I know, do you have an iguana or something?
Iguana. She's a rescue iguana. I wouldn't call her hobby as much as I really like iguanas, but they don't take a lot of work. So that's one thing that's nice about iguanas is that you feed them like once a day. They don't do much. They know where to poop. They're chill animals compared to like dogs or cats where they need attention. So I lift weights. I play computer games.
Mm-hmm.
I like to cook a lot. So I've been cooking a lot during the pandemic.
Oh, well, great. Yeah. Did you say that it was a rescue iguana?
Yeah.
What do you mean by rescue? Like it was at the animal shelter?
Well, so we actually have a reptile focused store in Madison, and they function as a de facto rescue site. So like if there was like this iguana came from a large litter of iguanas that apparently belonged to this old man who wasn't able to take care of them. And so they were like underheated because they need heat lights, underfed, and so their neighbors, the man's neighbor convinced him to give up the iguanas for adoption, and so that's how they ended up at the reptile store. And I picked the runtiest runt of them, who was the only one over. So she's very timid, but she's getting better.
Mm-hmm. And then does the iguana just like roam free in your home?
My old iguana, the one that I had in law school, did roam free in my house. I've let her try to roam free, but she's scared of everything. So now she's just now brave enough to go outside of her cage and onto this big cat tree that I got just for her so that she'd want to sit there. So she now goes from the cage to the cat tree to the top of her cage, back to the cat tree, back in her cage. So she's getting braver. She's not, quite there at exploring the house. I don't know if she'll ever get there.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really nice that you were able to adopt this iguana that was having some health issues and really a good home. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's way better. She's like she was like totally starving when I got her. Like you could see her ribs and stuff like that. And now she's fat. So
wow. And how long have you had the iguana?
I've had her for 3 years now.
Oh, okay. And how long do iguanas usually live?
They can live for a while. My other iguana was I had him for 17 years.
Oh, that is a really long time. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, all right. So, so anyway, I think if you could talk more like what do people need to do to set themselves up to become law professors? It seems like it's so hard to get those jobs.
Yeah. So I think there's a few things. You need to write a lot. So you need to try to write as many academic publications as possible and try to place them in quote unquote good law reviews. So sadly, there's a whole, hierarchy about law reviews. You want to either get it into a specialty law journal at a good school or a general kind of law journal at not necessarily as good a school, but one of those two kind of things. So you want to try to get many publications to demonstrate to the law school that you'll be a productive kind of faculty member. And you want to not just write a bunch of mishmash of things. You want to write things that sort of tie together in some kind of arc so they can see what your future line of research will be. So that's one part of it. Another part is just, this sort of general law school credential kind of stuff, which unfortunately applies to so many things. Get good grades, try to get a clerkship, appellate, federal clerkship, better. If you've got a Supreme Court clerkship, even better, hard to get. If you go to some of the sort of highly credentialed schools, like I think Harvard, Yale, Stanford are the big ones, NYU, University of Chicago, Columbia, those are somewhat medium tier. There's in terms of ranking of schools, that's also important. Buddying up to law professors so that they can write you good letters of recommendation is also helpful. And I actually accidentally stumbled into that because since I went to law school directly from grad school, I kind of just approached law school like grad school. So in grad school, you're supposed to get to know the professors to figure out who to be your advisor and all that stuff. So I kind of got to know professors, I think, in a way that many students didn't. So I didn't have as much of a problem finding letters of recommendation, but that's something that's also helpful to do. So those are the main things, I guess.
Mhm. Well, on that note, like, did you do research for any professors when you were at Georgetown Law?
Yeah, so that's again where I think I stumbled into this. I did research for 3 professors. So
Wow,
I kind of, yeah, I like had a research assistant my first year, Professor Brown Weiss, who now I'm actually authoring a casebook with. So yeah,
cool.
all these things tie together. And I did research for 2 other environmental law professors while I was there. So
But like, did you apply to help them, or did you just kind of talk to them and they just said, "Hey, want to do research for me"?
I actually kind of talked to them and it was like, come on, you want to, so, and then I kind of convinced them to. So you don't have to be all passive and just apply when they're looking. Sometimes you can convince them. I didn't know any better, so I did, but I just went at it my own way.
Yeah, so basically that lets young students know that you have to be proactive, right? Ask and ye shall receive, maybe.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because normally, like nobody knows about these things. Back when I was in law school, nobody ever taught us about, oh, this is what you need to do if you want to become a law professor.
Yeah. And I had no idea. I just, again, like I said, I stumbled into it because I was just doing the thing that you do in grad school, which is look for people to do research with. And, I just did the grad school thing. And in grad school, you're supposed to publish as much as possible. So I was like, okay, I'll just do the same thing, which ended up setting me up for an academic career, but I wasn't trying for it, per se. I just did normal grad school things.
Yeah. And then same thing, like when you were working at Department of Justice, like, did you ever think that you would just stay there and make a career out of working for the U.S. Department of Justice?
I did. During the second term of the Bush administration, things happened that I'm not sure I can totally talk about that made me feel uncomfortable with staying there longer.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So had those things not happened, I might have been much more happier there. And I still miss a lot of the people I worked with. Whenever I'm in DC around the holidays, I'll go to their holiday party and stuff. So I'm still very close to everyone. I just, felt like I had to go at the time.
Mm-hmm. I see. So, yeah, have you ever seen this video called "Don't Be a Lawyer"?
No, I haven't.
It's like this really funny like music video from a TV show called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend or something. But anyway, there's a line.
But I haven't seen it. Yeah.
But there's a line in there where somebody asks the main singer, well, what about environmental law? And he says, no money.
Right. Or there is money, but you're representing the polluters.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so for example, like those like nonprofit groups that help the environment, first of all, aren't there very few attorney positions and they don't pay well? That's the general impression that I always got.
Yeah. It's hard to get the positions. On the other hand, if you do want to do environmental law, a lot of environmental groups have pro bono kind of cases that they can farm out to take on too. So I know a lot of folks who go to law school and they can't afford to do a purely nonprofit position. I do recommend that, if you work for a firm, you can still look for sort of cases to work on pro bono in conjunction with environmental groups. Like Conservation Legal Foundation is one of the groups that's especially good about that. They set aside a large number of cases specifically to work with attorneys at different firms so that they can do stuff in conjunction with them. So that's another way to sort of, if you are dedicated to an area of law, it doesn't mean you have to devote your full practice to it. You can sometimes work with groups to do that.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah, but those are like farmed out to people that work in the big firms.
Not necessarily. I mean, I think their Conservation Legal Foundation is pretty much all out. They'll, take volunteers from lots of different areas. So they're pretty good. There's a few other ones that are pretty good. Some of them are farmed out to the big firms. There's a whole spectrum of them out there. Mm-hmm. Weirdly, during this period of time, there are more environmental attorney positions because environmental groups have done a lot of fundraising in this current administration and they've been pretty successful. So weirdly, during, I would say, times in which the federal administration is antagonistic to environmental protection, there's actually more attorney positions out there.
Oh, okay. Well, what about in your state in Wisconsin? Like, are there other like groups that hire environmental attorneys?
Yeah, so I'm on the board of Midwest Environmental Advocates, which is a sort of litigation-focused environmental organization based in Madison. There's also more advocacy-based organization like Clean Wisconsin, Sierra Club, I think there's a small Earth Justice branch. It's really just one person. And so there's a lot of, and there's also boutique firms. So there are a few boutique firms that specifically handle like sort of plaintiff side environmental litigation. And they don't act as nonprofits, and you actually probably make more money there, but they do function more like a law firm kind of model. So there's a few groups in Madison. Or Wisconsin. So it's a range of things. A lot of times in Wisconsin, since our main pollution issues are water pollution issues, and the main people who are concerned with water pollution are either tribes, municipalities, or just neighborhoods. They'll generally be like not individual kind of plaintiffs, but it'll be like group plaintiffs.
Oh, okay. Oh, how interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, in this day and age, like, do you think it's a good idea for Asian Americans to apply to law school?
You know, I think it just depends on what people want to get into. I mean, there's definitely been people I've dissuaded from law school. Like there's people who are like, okay, I want to go into environmental protection and do stuff. And I'm like, what do you want to do in terms of your day-to-day kind of life? And they'll talk about actually seeing stuff and like sampling things. And I'm like, no, if you're working in the law area, you're just going to be sitting at a desk. You know, you got to love looking at a bunch of regulations and stuff. And if you like that, then yeah, that could be the area for you. But if you want to do certain other things, like if you want to do more like sort of direct people to people kind of things, sometimes it works. It just depends on what you want to do with your day-to-day kind of life. So I would say it really, really depends on what you imagine your daily life looking like, and then figuring out whether or not there's a match in there. And then also taking into account the fact that depending on the school that you go to, you're going to have a lot of loans. There's a lot of haggling back and forth too, because sometimes if you have good enough scores, you can sort of leverage different schools against each other to like get the best, you know, tuition package possible. And I know that really savvy people do that. I'm not, you know, up to snuff on that since you and I went to law school ages ago, but I think that's something to consider as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you have debt after law school?
I lucked out in the sense that I did, but I also remember I mentioned that I lived with someone from DOJ my same year. Well, the next year after we lived together, 1 year, we're like, okay, we're going to invest in a cheap house in a sketchy neighborhood because we think the value is going to go up. The value did go up. I ended up selling off my part, and that helped. that kind of did everything. So I lucked out.
Great.
Savvy real estate investment.
But investing in DC.
Yeah, for investing in DC, but you know that you can't promise that for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And then getting back to, you know, Department of Justice, like how many attorneys did they have working in the environmental division, and how often did they hire people in the first place?
So at the time, the honors attorneys were like, they had 8 of us. I think it fluctuates from year to year, depending on funding, depending on openings. So sometimes it's like as few as 4. There have been years, I think, when they haven't hired anyone. And then sometimes there have been bigger years. In terms of overall, I don't know what the overall hiring, it's kind of random. It just depends on when people retire and leave. And also, you know, the funding for the agency. Like for instance, now there's actually been a lot of retirements, but there's not been as many replacements due to political commitments of this administration. So probably not that much, but in overall, there are actually, I think maybe in the environmental division overall, I think maybe 500 attorneys. So it's actually a decent amount. Many of them are in the trial section in what's called the environmental enforcement section. Fewer of them in the other kind of sections.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but that just goes to show how competitive it is, because you said your class only had 8 attorneys chosen for the honors program in the whole country, right?
Yeah. So it can be very competitive. But the thing to know is that there are many different honors programs. So there's, you know, I think every now and then Interior has one, every now and then EPA has one, all of the different agencies. I mean, even if you're talking outside of environmental, like, you know, Department of Ag sometimes has one. So all the different, I think NASA even has one sometimes. So all of the different agencies will have them, not always consistently, but there are things to look for law students applying. And also state agencies do that too. Like our Wisconsin Department of Justice has a program where it takes in new attorneys as well. So that's something else to consider.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. Well, yeah, just looking at time here. Oh, it's already like after 5 o'clock here.
Wow.
So, yeah, but thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and everything. And, you know, I'm sure this piques the interest of people who have some curiosity about environmental law or law school teaching careers, for example, you know, because this is like a real specialized area that not many people have experience with. So thanks so much for being willing to share your expertise and your experience here.
Oh, no problem. Let me add one more extra thing too.
Yeah.
For if Asian American students listening to this do end up going to law school, please take advantage of all the sort of networking possibilities that you have, like APABA, which is the Asian Pacific American Bar Association. A lot of them in different cities will have actual mentorship opportunities for students who sign up. You know, they'll match you up with a particular, you know, practitioner in the area if they can find it. And like my APABA mentor that I got in DC actually ended up helping me with applying to DOJ because he was a DOJ attorney. And later on, I've been like sort of following him all my life because later on he ended up in teaching. And so I actually could consult with him in terms of putting together a teaching package. And it's been invaluable. And it's just like a sort of networking opportunity that I didn't even think that I was going for, but it really helped out. So, you know, keep that in mind.
Yeah. Can you say this person's name?
Siming Yang.
Oh, okay. No, I don't think I knew that person.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's cool because, you know, I'm still friends and keep in touch with my APABA DC mentor.
Oh, really? Cool.
Works for the Department of Justice and the antitrust.
Oh, okay.
Allie, A-N-G. Yeah, but, you know, it's great because, you know, we just happened to meet at one of those, like, little networking things in DC, like, back in 1998, and then we've just stayed in touch through all these years, which reminds me I probably should send her an email and say hello because I think it's my turn to send her an email. So.
Okay, oh, cool. Yeah, same here. We'll kept in touch with Siming.
So where is he teaching now?
He's teaching now because he used to be at Vermont, and now he moved to a school in California. I can't unfortunately remember which one because there's so many schools in California.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time, and I enjoy seeing about all your cooking adventures and stuff in this book. So, yeah. Okay, hope you enjoy the rest of your visit in Illinois.
Yeah, thank you.